those are the things that are to be given very high importance. That's what we have discussed in my last class. Now let us discuss as to what the religious reform, various religious reform movements. What is a religious reform movement? As I said yesterday, and in my last class, anything if you don't control it if, with your deliberate actions, things will tend to go in wrong ways. So religion was also a belief, something which is to be practiced, and it has also I would say new things and which are irrational, inhuman, illogical. Things have cooped up, or they have become part and parcel of religion. Okay, so some people who had knowledge as to what really religion is, what it says, and people like Raja Ram Mohan Rai who studied uh, the almost not all the religions, but all the religious books of scripture, secret scriptures of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. Then, with that kind of idea, he said that there is only one God and all the religions they teach the same thing, they convey the same message. So we need not fight among us, we need not fight with each other. Okay, and with he when he tried to spread his ideas, his beliefs are, for example, God is one and the same for all, and we need not worship the idols. Okay, so such things, monotheism and all other things, when he talked about, people were not ready to listen to him. They were really reluctant. That too, you can imagine, it's a time early 19th century. Okay, so he, as I said, studied the religious scriptures of Hinduism and Christianity and Islam, and he understood that all the religions are talking about the same thing. That is, humanity are being showing some respect or love towards the other humans, and worshipping one single God who is formless. So, to preach these, I would say, to spread these ideas, he started an institution which is now very famous as Brahmo Samaj. So this Brahma Samaj is started by him, and this Brahma Samaj till today it continues, but there are some changes. And say it's not running with the same ideals with which the organization has been started by Raja Ram Mohan Rai. Okay, okay. So the persons who have taken over this Brahma Samaj, again they have implemented some ideas which were not originally Raja Ram Mohan Roy's ideas. But anyhow, it's a great success. They still practice monotheism. The two, they don't worship idols. Okay, so a formless God, the two single God. They do. They believe that God is one and the same for everyone. Okay, and it's not only this thing which he talked about. He also talked about many other wrong practices which were at that time in those days, which were part of religion, like sati sagamana, that is killing a wife who is alive along with the dead husband. And people used to burn the wife who is alive. If the husband dies, wife should also die. But these systems were not there originally. He knew it, he read it, he understood it, and he tried to explain the same. But people couldn't listen to it. Then what he did is he approached the Britishers. He learned English also. He learned many languages, almost 14 languages. He had knowledge of 14 languages. So he uh, somehow convinced the British authorities, and he requested them to make a law. And his efforts, and so he was successful in that particular thing. So the British government issued, they have come up with a specific law, abolition of sati, in the year 1929. This was because of the efforts of Raja Ram Mohan Rai. Okay, so it's not only religious reform, I'm say abolishing this sati or this practice in human practice, it's also a social reform. because it's not just religious thing. This whole society was suffering with this. So sometimes it becomes very hard to discriminate or distinguish between social reforms and religious reforms. So we are discussing it as a religious reform, but it is social reform also. So Raja Rammohan Rai was, as I said, really a learned scholar, born a Hindu, but a Brahmin. But you can imagine a person belonging to Brahmin community, and saying that all people, all the men or women are equal, and God is only one. We have no place for such inhuman practices in our religion, not only in our Hindu religion, but in any religion. And all the religions speak of only one truth and one God. Saying such things in those days, you can imagine how the things could have been. And as I said, people many a times were ready to, uh, they used to beat him, they used to scold him, but he faced all those things. But still, he wanted the inhuman, illogical, irrational, wrong practices to be eliminated from the society, from the religion. So he tried his best. So his campaign against sati, as I said, faced opposition by Orthodox Hindus. Okay, they attacked him many times. So this is what is about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and he also advocated women education. Okay, so the first thing is that he studied all the religious scriptures, not all, at least Bible, Quran, and Hindu religious scriptures, Vedas and Upanishads. Then he has come up with this idea that all the religions are same, they are talking about the same thing, and that God is one and the only one for each and everyone, and we need not worship the idols, formless worship of God. This is what is the gist. And to spread these ideas, he started Brahmo Samaj. In the beginning, it was known as Brahma Sabha. Then it got, and say people have changed the name to some Brahma Samaj. And he has also, his efforts have also resulted in abolition of sati. He is the first person to come up with this kind of ideas. Then second person is Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Have you ever heard his name, Dayananda Saraswati? Dayananda Saraswati, I'd like to show you some pictures. So can you see the pictures? Photo, is it visible? Students, are you there? Are you online?
Yes, sir.
Can you see my screen? Is it visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is the picture of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay, so we simply identify him with this turban. This turban, it is common. And he died in London. Okay, he actually worked for some Maharaja Akbar, not that Akbar, another Akbar, and he died. And say he went to England to negotiate with the British government on behalf of Akbar. At that time, he was a king. Akbar was a king. So, and unfortunately, he died there itself. And these are the pictures of Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Okay, so yeah, Dayananda Saraswati, his original name was Mula Shankar, and he, from his childhood only, he was not interested in these worldly things, so he took sannyasa. And he, uh, it is a practice in India whenever someone takes and say renounces the worldly things and takes sannyasa, then they assume or they take a new name. So he assumed Mula Shankar, after taking sannyasa, has become famous with the name Dayananda Saraswati. Okay, he started Arya Samaj somewhere around 1875. So, what was his idea? What he wanted to do? Actually, he was a person who believes in the Vedic scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads. He gave a slogan, "Go back to Vedas." That was his slogan. Even though a person who was really believing in Vedas and Upanishads, who loved Sanskrit, who learned Sanskrit, but still at the same time, Mula Shankar or Swami Dayananda Saraswati was very much a great supporter of English education, Western education. So he not only advised people or asked people to go back to Vedas, or he not only advised people to study the Vedas and Upanishads, but he also encouraged people to have uh, to go for Western education, to know what is Western thought, Western philosophy is. So he started Brahma Samaj and Arya Samaj, and at the same time he started some schools which are known as Dayanand Anglo Vedic schools. Now you see the name itself explains Anglo Vedic. They teach the Vedas and other things also. At the same time, they teach this Western education also. These schools were famous in those days in Lahore. Lahore was part and parcel of India at that time. Okay, when these two, I would say, when was the India divided into two parts? Any idea? Okay, very good. I want you people to type your roll numbers in chat box. That means only one student is listening and he is informing all others. So, rule number 92, Shastri.
Yes, sir.
You are the only one, it seems, who is listening, and you are informing, it seems, all the others. Isn't it? So, those who are not really interested in attending the lecture, I request them, please leave the class. Even if one student is ready to attend my lecture or listen to me, then I'll teach him or her only. One student is enough for me. I don't want this number 21 students, 25 students. Okay, so I request all the others, those who are not listening, I request them to leave the class. One who can listen to me, one who can be attentive, and one who can answer me whenever I ask them something. I request them to be in the class. Very good. Or not, I left the meeting. Somebody else also left. Good. So if you are in classroom, Google Classroom or normal classroom, it is your duty, you are bound to listen to my lecture and you are bound to respond to me. Please remember, I asked you people to type your roll number, you took 1 minute. I asked you something, nobody is listening. Then why you people join the class? What was the slogan given by Dayanand Saraswati? Can anyone tell me?
Go back to Vedas.
Okay, who is this?
Rija,
Nay,
sir.
Srija. Okay. So even though he said and said all the, and see, he was of the opinion that Vedas have all the knowledge, but at the same time, you see a person talking, saying that asking people to go back to Vedas or learn Vedas, and at the same time, the same person advising the people or encouraging the people to have English education. So he was really fascinated with the scientific advancement of the Western society. So he wanted us to have the knowledge of that scientific advancement, and he wanted to know the Western. He wanted us to know the Western philosophy, Western liberal thinking, ideology, and for that he started schools with the name Dayanand Anglo Vedic schools. First of all, he started it in Lahore and some colleges and education institutions in Punjab also. These were really famous. So anyhow, he did his best uh, in different ways by opening education institutions, by giving knowledge to general public or people as to what is said in Vedas, what is mentioned in Vedas. He also published a used to publish what should I say, a book by name Satyartha Prakasha, which is very famous. So we had many individuals, those who have tried in their own way to see that the inhuman practices, the irrational practices, the illogical practices, which were not actually part and parcel of religion, to see such things, to stop such things, to give awareness to people as to what really a religion is. Okay, and both the Raja Ram Mohan Rai and the Dayanand Saraswati, both of them, they always wanted the women to be indifferent at the time of education, or they wanted them to have the education, and they discouraged child marriages. Okay, and in his schools, English medium was also there, and Hindi medium was also there. So in modern lines, they used to give education to people in both the mediums, English as well as Hindi. There were many schools. Even now we have some DAV schools, Dayanand Anglo Vedic schools. Arya Samaj has also come up with uh, things like similar to Brahmo Samaj. In Brahmo Samaj, I would say they gather and they give lectures. In Arya Samaj also, they people gather and they give lectures. But Brahma Arya Samaj, it is I would say it talks about nationalism. It talks about Hinduism, the Hindu religious scriptures, what religion is saying, many other things. And he also started a movement which is very famous in those days, which is known as Shuddhi movement. Shuddhi movement is a movement wherein people who have changed their religion, for example, somebody was a Hindu, he got converted to Islam or Christianity or some other religion. Then he or the Arya Samajis, they used to tell them that let it be Hinduism or any other religion, whatever is there in other religions that is also there in Hinduism, or its greatness, or its what is said in originally said in Hindu religious scriptures, and they used to see that the people again come back to this religion. So for such things in those days there were actually no procedures, but he has started a new procedure with the name Shuddhi movement, wherein they used to cleanse them or purify them, then they used to take back them or accept them into Hinduism. Okay, so many people have tried in different ways. As I said, if Raja Ram Mohan Rai tried to explain and he convinced the government authorities to implement a law against Sati movement. Then the Saraswati has opened he on his own opened some schools, colleges, education institutions, and has advocated or requested or encouraged people to have education, Western as well as Indian. So equal importance was given by him. Many schools have been opened by him from Lahore to Haridwar. Okay, then another famous personality, Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is also seen like Dayananda Saraswati. Uh, Before taking sannyasa, his name was Narendranath Datta. After taking sannyasa, he assumed a new name, that is Vivekananda. People know him with this name only. He is very famous with this name, Vivekananda. His guru, who is an uneducated Brahmin, Ramakrishna, whereas Swami Vivekananda, he has got Western education also. Did some BA, I think. So, actually, do you know who introduced the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Narendranath to Ramakrishna and Datta? Who first gave information about this Ramakrishna to Vivekananda? Can you guess? Can anyone guess? It was an English professor. He first talked about Ramakrishna with Vivekananda. Then Swami Vivekananda thought of seeing Swami Ramakrishna. So somehow it has happened, and they were the world famous guru and shishyas, the teacher and the student. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa encouraged Narendra Datta to go and speak in the World Parliament of Religions. But by that time, Ramakrishna was not alive, but still it is said so. So I'm just sharing that with you. Okay, let us see what are the things that are done by Ramakrishna or his disciple Vivekananda. Actually, Vivekananda started a mission or an institution which is known as Ramakrishna Mutt or Ramakrishna. You might have seen Ramakrishna Mutt in Hyderabad also. Have you? Have you ever seen it?
No, sir.
Okay. So they also encourage youth. They also help youth. How? Actually, it began in a different way. They first used to serve those people who were suffering with natural calamities. For example, if there is a flood in any place, they used to go and help the people. If there is any other kind of natural calamity, they used to go to that place and help the people. But after that, when this Ramakrishna mission has become very famous, and when they have enough funds to perform different charities, then they have come up with different things. Now, which Ramakrishna Math, they encourage youth by giving them help or support, for example, to improvise their communication skills, or by helping them to learn different languages, international languages. They have free libraries where we can go and sit and study. They have some doctors who, on behalf of Ramakrishna, might do free service. They feed people, those who cannot earn their bread and butter. So different things are done by different institutions. So coming to Swami Vivekananda and his Ramakrishna Mutt. First of all, Swami Vivekananda, as I said, was a he comes from a big family, a rich family. His father was an advocate, but he died early. So Vivekananda has also faced poverty, has seen things. He wanted to get a job and feed his mother and his siblings, which he couldn't do, but he has taken sannyasa. Then he thought the same thing. He boldly says that even though we see him, or we feel that, we believe that Vivekananda is also a Hindu saint who believes in God. Of course, that is all true. But he boldly said, I don't believe in that God who cannot give the needy or the poor bread and butter, or at least food. That was, I'm saying, that's what Swami Vivekananda was. So he was having faith in Hinduism. He believes in God. He has also said one more thing. I said I feel happy when I see a young boy, going to a temple. But if I see a grown up going to a temple, I don't feel that happy. That's what he said. Then people misunderstand the statement. But what he's trying to say is, as a boy, if you feel that God is there in temple, then it is okay. If you are going to temple to see the God, it's okay. You can understand it. But as a grown up, you should know that God is everywhere. Why you should search for Him in temple? So these were the rebellious, or different ideas of Swami Vivekananda, but he's also a well-learned person. He has also studied the scriptures, sacred scriptures of Hinduism. He has got knowledge of Sanskrit, English as well. As I said, because he got access to Western education, and he was in those days very famous as a Swami, a sannyasi who can speak in English. In the beginning, he was not famous as a sannyasi, but he was famous as a sannyasi who can speak in English. So he, along with his friends, first started Ramakrishna Math, which was really not that big in those days, but they used to help the people. But as I said, in afflux of time, as they got money and all other things, this institution has become very big and famous. And after Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, those who were taking care of this institution, they have improvised it, developed it like anything. So this Swami Vivekananda, he, in his own way, unlike Raja Ram Mohan Rai, unlike Jnana Saraswati, he has done something different. He has chosen an international stage where he can talk about Hinduism. Those Westerners who were having a different idea, which was not correct, he cleared all their misbeliefs or wrong beliefs, misunderstandings with regard to Hinduism, and he explained as to what the original Hinduism is. It was in 1863 Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Sorry, 1893, not 63. So everyone, let it be Raja Ram Mohan Rai, let it be Jambekar, let it be Dayanand Saraswati, let it be uh, Swami Vivekananda, they have tried in their own way. Now, even though directly Vivekananda might not have done any social or religious reform, but it is an indirect way. By giving the Westerners the correct, by letting them know what is exactly Hinduism is, he has cleared the doubts, or we can say that it's a kind of religious reform. And at the same time, he has also tried to let the people, Indians, know what exactly Hinduism is. Then there are many other reforms in their own sphere. They have tried to go for answer to change the things. For example, I said Jambekar from Bombay, okay, and Paramahamsa Mandali he started in Pune, and in the Maharashtrian area only, Satara, Pune, Mumbai. Okay, he started us. Then there is Jyotirao Phule, who taught his wife to read and write, and in turn he started this from his home first, and then he started many girls' schools, schools for women and girls, and then he taught many other women uh, to read and write. Then there is Kandukuri Veerashlingam in Telugu-speaking states, who pioneered the movement to support widow remarriages. Okay, then Narayana Guru is another person, another saint from Kerala. So there are a number of, for example, Subramanya Bharati from Tamil Nadu. So there are many people, many individuals who have tried in their own way. Somebody has uh, shown interest in women education. Somebody has shown interest in giving correct knowledge, right knowledge as to what religion is. Somebody has tried to know to come up with few laws or regulations, rules, so that the inhuman practices can be stopped. So like that, there were different things, and such religious reform movements are there in Sikhs, in Parsis, in Muslims. Now, if you have to talk about the religious reform movement in Muslims, there is one movement by name Aligarh movement. Sayyid Ahmad Khan was an educated person in those days. He somehow has a friendship or a good relation with the Prime Minister of Hyderabad, Salarjung. Have you ever heard his name, Salarjung? Have you ever heard this name, student, Salarjung?
That museum, Salatin Museum.
Yeah. Who was he? He was a prime minister to Nizam. Okay. So he was a friend of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He was an educated, and he thought that the backwardness of Muslims, or why Muslims are they don't mingle with others. He saw that the reason for their what should I say, uh, for their backwardness, and the people, why do they keep themselves away from others for their isolation? He thought it is education, lack of education, or lack of modern thought, modern knowledge. Then with this idea, with this intention, he wanted to start a university, or a school, or an education institution. Now it is a famous big university in India, Muslim University, Aligarh Muslim University. So he started a small institution, that too with the help of the Prime Minister of Hyderabad, Salar Jung. So Salar Jung has funded the institution. Many of us don't know, but this is truth. This is Hyderabad people's tax, which is there in the form of university. So he was actually a person from central India. So he was an educated person. With the help of others, he wanted to come up with some reforms in Muslims. So Syed Ahmad Ali Khan, you might have heard the name Rai Bareli, which is very famous. Why is Rai Bareli famous? Congress leaders, top leaders of Congress, they contest from this Rai Bareli. So the Syed Ahmad of Rai Bareli, that is Uttar Pradesh, he understood, his understanding was that it is lack of education which is making them, making the Muslim community to be in isolation, or to be backward. So he wanted to give them knowledge. For that, he started an institution, and he not only started an institution, but he wrote many books. It's not actually writing books, but he interpreted, and he funded, and see, he arranged money to interpret many other books, which are books of science and mathematics, which are there in other languages. He wanted them to be translated so that all the people can read it. Those who don't have knowledge of English and all these things, they can read it, and they can improve their knowledge. Okay, so it's not only Muslims, but you can see the reforms in Parsis also. Of course, Parsi society was very well advanced, because from the beginning, if you see, um, the Parsi community of India, they are well educated, they are rich, they are advanced. What do I mean by advanced? Advanced in terms of they are fashionable, their education was also when men and women from the beginning. For example, you might have heard the name Madam Bikaji Kama, an Indian independence movement. She was a lady from a Parsi family. She got education and she participated in this movement. So from the beginning, Parsis were they were full of modern ideology or modern thinking. But still, people like Dadabhai Nauroji, Nauroji, Pardonji, S.S. Bengali, they were the people, learned people and famous individuals with money and other things available at their disposal. So they started to publish magazines. They started institutions. They started businesses. Okay, so because they were rich and popular figures, it was very easy for them. Even as I said, from the beginning itself, women were also given education in their families. But still, whatever small things, problems were there, they tried to eliminate those problems or issues with the help of knowledge and education. And they used to have journals also, like Rafta Gostar is a journal by uh, Parsis, for Parsis. So, like this in Parsis also people have tried, among Sikhs also. So, if you take any religion, definitely somebody will stand up and say that these are not part of, originally part of a religion, and they'll try to condemn those things which are inhuman, which are irrational. But fortunately, in Hindus, there are many people who actually spend their time and intellectual capacity to know the things and to make others understand the things. Okay, so these were the few religious reform movements in India. So, do you have any doubt or any question or any point to make? Or have you understood? Are you listening, yourself? First of all, let me know. Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have with this we have discussed all the points in third unit. Now just tell me if you have any point to make or any doubt or any question. No? Okay, then we'll start the fourth unit. But before that, just answer your roll call. 61, 62,
Present, sir.
63,
Present, sir.
64,
Present, sir.
65, 66,
66 present, sir.
67, 68, 69,
69 present, sir.
okay, 70,
Present, sir.
69 present, sir.
okay, 71,
Present, sir.
72,
Present, sir.
73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78,
Present, sir.
70, 78,
Yes, sir.
79, 80, 81,
80 present,
80,
sir.
80 nanడి.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
80.
okay, 81, 82, 83,
Present, sir.
ఎవరు ప్రజెంట్ రోల్ నెంబర్ ఏంటి?
82, 82.
83, 84,
Present, sir. 83.
85,
84 present, sir.
okay, 85, 86, 87, 88,
Sir.
ఏం నెంబర్ అమ్మా? 86, 87, 88,
87 present, sir.
88, 89,
89 present, sir.
90, 91,
Present,
92,
sir.
92 present, sir.
okay, 93,
Present, sir.
94, 95,
94 present, sir.
okay, 95, 96, 97, 98,
97 present, sir.
97, okay, 98, 99, 100,
100 present, sir.
101,
101 present, sir.
102, 103,
Present, sir.
103, 104, 105, 106,
106
One-
present, sir.
107, 108, 109, 110,
110 present, sir.
109 and 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116,
116 present, sir.
117,
117 present, sir.
118, 119,
Yes,
120,
sir. Present, sir.
119,
119 present, sir.
okay.
Sir,
So
67
120,
also present.
67, okay. Right. So the fourth unit is all about fine arts. Okay. Yeah. So fine arts.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, 115 present, sir.
Pardon?
115, sir.
ఇప్పుడే లేచారా నిద్రపోయి?
No, sir. Laptop internal mic ఎందుకు వర్క్ చేస్తలేదు, సార్.
మరి మీరు మెసేజ్ చేయొచ్చు కదా,
అంటే
చాట్
ఫోన్
లో
లో
టైప్
లాగిన్
చేయొచ్చు కదా.
అయ్యేసరికి
అక్కడ నుంచి కూడా మీరు చాట్ చేయొచ్చు. ఇన్ కాల్ మెసేజ్ అని ఉంటుంది, దాంట్లో మీరు మెసేజ్ పెట్టినా కనబడుతుంది. దట్ మీన్స్ యు ఆర్ నాట్ దేర్ ఇన్ ది క్లాస్, బట్ స్టిల్ ఐ హ్యావ్ నో అదర్ చాయిస్. సో నేను మీకు అటెండెన్స్ ఇస్తున్నాను, కానీ ఇట్స్ నాట్ గుడ్. ఓకే. సో ఫోర్త్ యూనిట్ ఇస్ ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ What are fine arts? What is the meaning of fine arts? What do you mean by fine arts? Do you have any idea? Can anyone tell me? చెప్పండి.
Monuments.
ఓకే, ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ అంటే మాన్యుమెంట్స్ అంటారు. ఓకే, ఇంకా
Sir,
ఓకే,
sir, painting, literature, music, I think these are also fine arts, sir.
వెరీ గుడ్. సో వీటన్నిటిలో కామన్ గా ఉండేది ఏంటి? మనం వాటిని ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ అని ఎందుకు అంటున్నాం? వాట్ ఈస్ ది కామన్ థింగ్ దట్ ఈస్ దేర్? Okay, I'll tell you. As while
Skills, sir.
discussing,
Skills.
fine arts needs skills. Good, okay, but what is fine art? ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ అంటే ఏమిటి? ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ కి స్కిల్స్ అవసరం, పర్సనల్ స్కిల్స్ ఉండాలి. అగ్రీ. అసలు ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఫైన్ ఆర్ట్స్ అంటే ఏమంటే వేటిని అయితే చూడగానే మనం అబ్బా చాలా బాగుంది అని అనుకుంటాము, అలా ఉండే విధంగా, అంటే విచ్ గెట్స్ అవర్ అడ్మిరేషన్. యాజ్ ఇన్ ది కేస్ ఆఫ్ కల్చర్ ఐ టోల్డ్ యూ దట్ purifying to that extent or something, changing something to such a level that it gets our admiration. Okay, so fine arts are also those things are doing something. Generally it is visual, by seeing which we feel good, we feel happy, we say that okay, it is good. Let it be painting, let it be dance, let it be creating an ambience in a room, drawing or dressing. Even music is also, we don't see it, we listen it, but music is also literature, we read it. Okay, so all those things they come under, are a sculpture, handicrafts, you can say many things. So all those things come under fine arts. So we are going to discuss, and so generally what people believe is Western societies are really advanced in all walks of life, or whatever you say. It's not only scientific advancement, but many issues are in many things. Western societies or Western cultures are advanced, and we are not advanced. To remove that wrong impression from your minds, we are discussing various things. In the first, in the beginning, we have discussed as to what culture is. First of all, we try to understand. Then we are discussing those things which are part of culture. Like we have discussed as to what is religion. How was the religion in various times. Then we have discussed various languages, whether we have languages or not. If we have languages, then is there any literature or not in those languages? And we have seen that our languages are rich, literature is also rich. It's not only English or French or Arabic or any other language, Latin. We do have many languages, and these languages are also old, and they are well structured, well developed. They have grammar, and we have literature also. Then we have learned that we have religion, and religious beliefs were also scientific. It was not some irrational belief, purely scientific belief. Right? Now we are going to see whether we had, at any point of time, we had anything like fine arts. Do we have that intellectual capacity or dexterity, I should say? So that is what we are going to discuss here. Again, it will be a discussion. As I said in previous units, we have gone for a comparative study. We have studied as to how the things were in different periods of time, in ancient era, medieval era, and modern. Now we'll also discuss those things, but generally we'll be discussing about various types of fine arts. First of all, painting. So the oldest painting that is available in India. Can anyone tell me that whether we had painting, we had knowledge of painting 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago? Can anyone give me any information, or do you have any idea? No idea? Okay. Have you ever heard the name Bhimbetka Caves? Okay.
No, sir.
Have you ever? No, very good. Have you ever heard the names Ajanta Caves, Ellora Caves?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is there in Ajanta or Ellora? What is there in
Sculpture.
Ajanta? Yeah, sculpture. Okay.
Picture.
At the same time, we have cave paintings. Some cave paintings are there. Okay. So, people of India also knew what is painting. Can you name any Indian painter? Not modern day, or at least okay, modern day will also do. MF Hussain, have you ever heard? MF Hussain, name. No? Okay. Have
Sir
you ever heard?
Rabindranath Tagore, sir. I think he is a painter, sir.
Of course, he had so many
Rabindranath
skills.
Tagore, sir.
Yeah, many skills. Painting might be one of them. I don't know. What I know is he was a poet. But I can I think he has also had the knowledge of painting because there are many good painters and good people with good writing skills. Okay, have come from this his school. So I don't know whether he was or not, but there are chances because he was a multi-faced personality. Right. So have you ever heard the name Raja Ravi Verma? He was also a very famous painter. Um, okay, leave it. So paintings. Um, as I said, in Ajanta Ellora caves also we have some cave paintings. You can see some paintings there. The oldest paintings were found in Bhimbetka caves, Madhya Pradesh. Prehistoric. What is the meaning of the word prehistoric? Whenever we get some archaeological or anthropological or literary clues, based on that we construct the history. But there are some, I'm saying, if we go back into time, then after 3000, 4000, 5000 years back, we don't have much information. We don't have much proofs. Okay, archaeological proofs or anthropological proofs. Whatever we get, basing on that, we have to reconstruct our history. So that is what is called prehistoric period. So these caves were prehistoric caves, almost 30, 40,000 years old caves. In those caves, social scientists found some paintings on rocks, cave rocks. So we can say that people who lived in that time, they knew they had some skills or they knew what is painting. So because they have depicted animals, trees, a few people like that. So from that time, we can say that there were paintings as old as 40,000 years are available. Okay, so how do they paint? I'm saying in those days there were no colors, there were no pencils, paint brushes, but how people have shown the things what they were seeing in the form of pictures. Can anyone guess? They used to use natural colors like colors from trees, leaves, flowers. Okay, sometimes normal clay and other things. The combination of vegetables, different colors. Okay, so excuse me. It's not only cave paintings, but there are yeah. It's not only cave paintings, but there are paintings on different things. For example, we have a system of painting on cloth, painting on paper, painting on these what do you call them? Tree leaves, rocks. Okay. So from the times of Buddha, we have proper paintings. Our painting has evolved as a science or as an art from as old as 3000 years. For example, Lepya Chitra, Leka Chitra, Dhuli Chitra. There were different techniques. What is Lepya Chitra? Lepanamu. Do you have any idea? What does it mean? లేపనం అంటే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఫేషియల్ క్రీమ్స్ ఉంటాయి, మీరు ఏం చేస్తారు అంటే పూసుకుంటారు, ఆ పూసుకోవడానికి లేపనం అంటే దేని అయితే రాసుకోవచ్చు, విచ్ కెన్ బి అప్లైడ్ టు బాడీ ఆర్ ఫేస్ అండ్ ది సేమ్ వే విచ్ కెన్ బి అప్లైడ్ టు సమ్ సర్ఫేస్, దట్ ఈస్ లేఖ్య చిత్ర. లేఖ చిత్ర, that means that which you draw. Dhuli chitra, which is created with dust and other things. So there were different things which were shown with this kind of techniques. Sometimes the animals that they surround and say that they can see in their vicinity, the flora and fauna. Then as the time passed on, people became more civilized. People started living in villages than in cities, and they got some systems like public administration system or monarchy. So then big people started funding those painters or those things. Then they used to draw the paints of sketches of famous persons or kings, famous personalities. Beautiful sceneries were shown depicted like this. Let us see what are the different kinds of paintings that are there. So first of all, there is a book by name Vinay Pitika, which is a Buddhist text. Okay, it describes the existence of figures in many royal buildings. Now you see there are buildings in some places, like there is a place called Rampur somewhere near Rajasthan, Gujarat. If you go to that village, it's a small village, but each and every house will be like a fort. If you enter, you'll see, you feel that it is a museum. It's not just a house or a fort. Such villages are still there in India, but we don't know. So, Vinaya Pitaka, which is a Buddhist book which speaks of the existence of paintings in different royal buildings. And there is another book, Mudra Rakshasa. Okay, which speaks of paintings of individuals, Chitrapata we call. Then there are different books wherein some pictures are available. Okay, so let us see what are the different types of paintings and how they are prepared. Those paintings are prepared. First of all, mural paintings. Mural paintings are those paintings which are painted on some surface. Generally, it is on walls, rocks. Okay. So, cave number 9 of Ajanta Ellora depicts Buddhist monks going towards a stupa. Cave number 10, it depicts Jataka stories, Ajanta Ellora caves. Like this, we have many paintings. Then let us discuss about the materials that are used in paintings. As I said, in olden days they used to find some natural things. With them they used to paint the surfaces of some places, let us say rocks or walls or buildings. As the time passed on, they wanted new material, they wanted new things or new colors. Then the people started mixing up different things. Sometimes they used to find colored stones, and they used to get powder of those colored stones, and then they used to mix it with water, and then they used as colors for painting. So different techniques were used. Sometimes kumkum is used. Sometimes some fruits which were blue or black, they were used. We can see many colors like here I have mentioned. Dhaturaga, Kumkuma, Sindhura, Haritala, then Lapis lazuli is a kind of stone by breaking which, or by what should I say, crunching it, will get a powder. Then black kajal. Then sometimes it was sand. So different, whatever was available with them, they used to get different colors with those things. Okay, so many caves, many Buddhist viharas, they do possess these kind of wall paintings. Okay, then comes other kinds of painting. For example, yeah, Mithali painting. Mithali painting is, the name itself suggests that it is related to, or it is related to Mithila, or it can be found in places very near to Mithila region of Bihar. What do they do? Generally, you might have seen that Rajasthani and Gujarati women, they decorate their houses from within and from outside with different colors. Generally, they use three colors: white, red, and maroon color. Like so, these areas were really famous. Mithila region of Bihar was very famous for that kind of specific kind of paintings. So they used to make three-dimensional images using vegetable colors with few earthen colors, the colors which are extracted from earth. Like this, there are different paintings. So we'll discuss these paintings and dance forms and music in next one or two classes. We'll finish with this chapter. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll simply wind up the class. Complete the session. Conclude the session. No doubts?
No, sir.
Not- Okay, thank you.